Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And well, today, that's right, today is Hump Day.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
That's right, folks. Today is the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as we always like to say, the fun is all in the trying. Thank you so much for joining me here today on the Rundown. Unfortunately, Mike had a meeting, so he wasn't able to be with us today. But you know, that's just how it is. Like I said, when you're out there doing the entrepreneurial thing, when you're out there making money, making things happen, sometimes you got to miss a thing or two. And well, that's what's going on today. As you can see, I'm kind of gussied up a little bit. We're having an event this evening. It is going to be the campaign kickoff event for Craig DeLuz for Congress. So we're going to be getting together at a tasting room in Rockland, California called Conte Avino. That's Sing to the Wine. If you're ever in the Sacramento area, you definitely have to try them out. Phenomenal wines, phenomenal place, really good quality brothers who run it. Definitely want to check them out. Once again, Conte Avino, Sing to the Wine. They're in Rockland, California. But anyway, we're going to be getting together with Board of Equalization member Ted Gaines, who is going to be there with us, and a lot of really good friends and family will be there. So if you're available tonight, 6 o'clock, and you're in the Sacramento region, come on out. Once again, Conte Vino out there in Rockland, California. But anyway, so we're gonna be having a good time tonight. Like I said, maybe you'll be there, maybe you won't. Who knows? We shall see. But regardless, for the rest of this hour, we're gonna be having a good time right here. So if you guys have some comments, if you have some things that you want to say, if you want to comment on the stuff that we're talking about, do me a favor. Go ahead and comment, right? Now, remember, we're at, if you're watching this and it's 6 p.m. Eastern or 3 p.m. Pacific, then chances are you're on with us live. So go ahead and comment if you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, if you're watching us on Rumble. If you're watching us on OpsLens, you may have to go, if you want to comment on OpsLens, then you're going to have to go to Facebook, because that's usually where I'm checking out the comments there. Let's get over there, OpsLens at Facebook. Let's get into today's topics, and we'll go ahead and we'll start, though, first by giving a quick shout out to our sponsors. And we're going to start here with Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol length barrels. Check them out today. Also have Glock barrels. And if you are a first responder, on your first order, you get a discount. Just check them out today. That's U.S. Combat. Giving you the wrong one. That's Hitman Industries. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help conservative Republicans at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to them as the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out today. CRAGOP.org. Then we've got Hawg Holsters. That's HAWG Holsters, helping Americans wear guns. If you are in need of inside the waistband, outside the waistband tactical holster, concealed carry holster, you name it, they've got it. Check them out today. HawgHolster.com. Make sure you discount code the Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your discount today. And then we've got USCombatGear.com. All the tactical gear that you could ever want or need, indoor, outdoor, cold weather, warm weather, wet weather, whether you're camping, whether you're hunting, whatever it is, trust me, they've got it. And when it comes to firearms, they've got all the tactical gear you need except for the gun. They don't sell guns. They don't sell firearms. But they got pretty much everything else that you need. So they got fast shipping. They got a great selection, great prices. Check them out today, USCombatGear.com. All right. A big one, and we've talked a lot about January 6th. We talk a lot about the January 6th cases. You may not be aware, somewhere upwards, well over 1,000 people now have been charged. Hundreds have either been gone on trial or have pled their cases out. And in many cases, one of the very, very popular issues surrounding each one of those cases has been obstruction of a government proceedings. That's the thing that a lot of these people are being charged with. Well, the Supreme Court of the United States has, they're planning on taking a story or taking a case that could wind up upending a number of those one, cases that are about to come up, number two, convictions, or number three, plea deals that they have agreed to. And let's read a little bit of the story. This is out of Newsweek. It says, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear one of the cases challenging the Justice Department's interpretation of the obstruction of an official proceeding charge in what has been seen as a win for January 6, 2021 Capitol riot defendants. The court granted certiorari for Fisher v. United States on Wednesday, taking up Joseph Fisher's appeal on the felony charge. The obstruction charge at the center of the Fisher case is the same one deployed against hundreds of defendants allegedly involved in the attack on the Capitol, including former President Donald Trump. Fisher is one of three January 6 defendants who filed a petition with the Supreme Court. The case could upend hundreds of cases should the justices strike down the DOJ's reading of the obstruction charge and disagree that those who breached the Capitol building corruptly obstructed Congress's proceedings on January 6th. The Supreme Court announced which former federal prosecutor, Michael McAuliffe, called significant, comes just 2 days after the petition were relisted by the High Court, which had deferred the decision of whether or not to hear the appeal until the next conference date on January 5th, 2024. Legal experts had predicted that the cases were relisted by the Supreme relisted by the Supreme Court have a higher likelihood of being granted by the justices. A ruling against the government in the Fisher case in the Supreme Court could well have a ripple effect on many other Capitol riot cases where the defendants were charged with the same obstruction of justice provision, went to trial as opposed to pleading guilty and were convicted. Told McAuliffe told Newsweek. A Supreme Court decision calling the obstruction of justice statute could also impact the criminal case against Donald Trump in the U.S. District Court of D.C., but it's less clear when and how at this juncture, he said. All right, so that's interesting. So what they're saying here is that it probably won't affect the plea deals, although I will bet you that there will probably be some filings where if there is a decision made, you can bet that in a number of those plea cases that people are going to try and find a way to get their convictions overturned or to get their plea deals thrown out. So it would not surprise me one bit to in fact see that happen. But the point here is that the whole goal behind all of these cases was literally they wanted to throw people under the jail. And keep in mind, a lot of these folks were arrested. They were held without bail. Many for months, some for over a year. And in some cases, they were held for over a year before they were even actually charged. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. In particular, if there is any sort of a comparison to what happened to those who were involved in the George Floyd riots of 2020, it's very difficult to see that there is a carriage of that there is an equal justice being meted out here. It's very easy to see that, in fact, there has been a miscarriage of justice, in that one group has basically received a more strict justice than the others, shall we say? But once again, does that really surprise anyone here? probably not. If you've been watching this show for any amount of time, we know that there is a two-tier justice system, and if you happen to be conservative, you get a different justice than if you happen to be a liberal when it comes to some of these things that are taking place. In particular, when it comes to free speech and public protest, in a lot of cases, the way in which the government sees it. And when I say the government, I'm specifically referring to both bureaucrats and the political elites, as well as those who are on the left in the mainstream media. But, I kind of digress. So anyway, that's going to be very, very interesting because once again, this could put here's the thing. In terms of ideologically, it's not going to change many people's minds because people already see this as that if they do anything conservative, anything remotely conservative, then they are seen as, oh, well, this is a puppet court of Donald Trump. And that's the way there's a whacked out, controlled by conservatives Supreme Court. And then they ignore whenever they make any decision that is that in their mind that supports their position. Instead of just saying maybe they're making decisions that are fair-minded and based on the law, that are based on the Constitution. My following of the cases that I've seen that they've decided on, for the most part, have been very much based on the law and on the Constitution, not on judicial activism. The only cases where I've seen where judicial activism played a role was where they were literally overturning previous judicial activism, like Roe v. Wade, like affirmative action, like the voting, like the laws defending the voting rights. And when I say, by the way, just to be clear, when I talk about the Voting Rights Act, a lot of people get frustrated because they're like, oh, well, they're overturning the Voting Rights Act. The things that are generally getting overturned in the Voting Rights Act are laws that were put in place that put major restrictions on southern states' ability to affect and make decisions about their own elections without having to go to the federal government to get permission to change their state election laws. Now, I could see you getting angry and upset if this was 5 years after they had passed it. Once again, we were still dealing with the follow-up of Jim Crow and all of that. But we're talking, in most cases, we're talking 50, 60, 70 years ago. Yeah, no, it's time. It's time. Unless you are going to come out here and prove that the governments of Georgia, the governments of Florida, of Texas, of Louisiana, unless you're going to come out and prove that they are they are now still racist, run and controlled by racists, who are seeking to and actively seeking to subvert the black vote, which I know some of y'all on the left are claiming that to be the case, even though you have no evidence. Yeah. If you want to make the case, make the case. And evidently, you've done an unsuccessful job of making the case to the Supreme Court thus far. And that's the reason why those laws keep getting shot down. Not saying, just saying. All right, let's get on here now to our next story. You should know, there's this thing called the Hyde Amendment. Hyde Amendment basically says that federal dollars shall not be spent on abortion. Federal tax dollars, right? Federal tax dollars, your and my tax dollars, should not be going to pay for abortions. Seems pretty simple, right? Really should not be a problem there. But, turns out that what we know to be the law, has not necessarily been followed. This story here, according to Newsmax. Oh, wrong one. I clicked on the wrong one there. Here we go. Bam. And, okay, I'm sorry. Fortunately, sometimes doing this stuff, I mess up. And this one, I messed up. But anyway, this is a story that is out of... Interesting. Oh, there's a problem. Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. This is a story from Newsmax. Abortion providers got $2 billion in federal funds. This was during COVID. Abortion providers received nearly $2 billion in federal funding during COVID-19 pandemic, according to a new report from the Government Accountability Office. Released on Tuesday, the report found that between 2019 and 2021, leading abortion provider Planned Parenthood received $1.78 billion, while the International Planned Parenthood Federation received $2.03 million. MSI Reproductive Choices received $1.3 million, and 4 domestic regional abortion providers received $100.74 million, according to the report. The GAO found that Planned Parenthood affiliates received 44 Paycheck Protection Program loans totaling approximately $89 million. The entire amount, including accrued interest, was later forgiven. Quote, "It's appalling that big abortion providers are continuing to receive billions of dollars federal taxpayer funding," Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican of Tennessee, said in a press release. While small businesses struggled to make ends meet during the pandemic, Planned Parenthood illegally siphoned over $90 million from the Paycheck Protection Program, specifically designed to help our mom and pop shops keep their doors open. So I'm just wondering, first of all, how they got around the Hyde Amendment, which basically said that federal dollars shouldn't go. I'm guessing, what I'm guessing is their argument is, well, it didn't go to actually provide abortions. It just went to the abortion organization so that they could stay open and stay funded. They're going to argue that it went to pay staff who didn't perform abortions. It went to pay for functions that didn't control abortions. But yet and still, it went to an organization whose primary focus, and you could say it's not their primary focus, but they spend an overwhelming majority of their money and their financial resources on advocating to keep abortion legal, as well as to elect pro-abortion candidates to public office, as well as to actually provide abortions. And when I say provide abortions, I mean provide abortions to well, in their eyes, men, women, and they won't call them that, but children. And yeah, no, men don't have abortions, but they believe men can have babies. So I'm curious if they would actually say that men get abortions, but I digress. I'm guessing they do because they're kind of politically correct that way. In any case, I think it may not necessarily be a violation of the letter of the law, especially if they define where the resources went the right way. But I can guarantee you that it is definitely a violation of the spirit of the law. A lot of the cases, these organizations, what they do is that they apply for and they get federal funds for different things, and then they turn around and they use that money to then pay for, to help pay for their staff. And money that would have otherwise gone to pay for the abortions. What they do is they take that money and they move it over somewhere else, right? Or they take money that would have paid for that staff, right? And they move it over to pay for abortions, and then they get the federal money in and they use it to pay for that staff or that other stuff. That's not funded. It's fund shifting. That's what the whole point of fungible is, right? In other words, they move the money over that they would have used to pay that staff, and then they use the money to pay for the government, would pay for that staff. In the meantime, it still gives them extra money to use on other stuff that federal dollars are not supposed to be used to fund. I know y'all don't want to hear that, but yeah, that it happens. Oh, where are we at now? Oh, yeah. Okay, so you might have heard that there is a gathering in Washington, D.C. that's taking place with our illustrious, and when I say illustrious, I very much mean that tongue-in-cheek, but the meeting is with our illustrious vice president. It says here, U.S. lawmakers gather at the White House to discuss gun violence. That's right. The gun grabbers have gathered in Washington, D.C. with the chief gun grabber, or the gun grabber in chief, Kamala Harris. Here it says the White House on Wednesday hosted nearly 100 lawmakers from around the country to discuss how their states can try to better reduce gun violence. You're not in it alone, Vice President Kamala Harris told them. The event was run by the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, a new undertaking from President Joe Biden in September that has developed guidelines to help states take action. We've been meeting with state legislators ever since the start of our office, and one thing we hear all the time is that we want to do more to reduce gun violence, said Stephanie Feldman, director of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. The question is, what should they do and how? The gathering attracted lawmakers from 39 states, including Nevada, where a gunman last week killed 3 faculty members and wounded the 4th in a roughly 10-minute rampage at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. The shooter had a list of targets at the school and more than 150 rounds of ammunition. Harris, tasked by Biden with running the office, told lawmakers it was our responsibility, our chosen responsibility, dare I say our duty, to do the work of laying a path to get where we need to go. And there are best practices, to be fair, including not only what people write in terms of proposing legislation, but how you think about work and how you will think about messaging, how you will think about empowering and uplifting. That is right there. First of all, let me just say that is one of Kamala Harris's typical word salads. I really don't know exactly what it means or what she was trying to say with that. It's actually kind of confusing. So once again, I don't know exactly what she was trying to get away with that, but the thing is that the legislation on 9 times out of 10 that they're proposing is going to be struck down by the Supreme Court. We're finding that being from California or being in California, the groups like the Firearms Policy Coalition, the Second Amendment Foundation, Gun Owners of California, the California Rifle and Pistol Association they're filing lawsuits almost faster than they can write them down, because they realized how much of the decisions that have been made about cases in California have no basis in foundation and constitutional law. And Bruin has made it so that they are easily challengeable. And so you're going to start to see all of these things start to get overturned. And what's crazy is you have places like New York and California that are passing even more laws. Once again, restricting where for example, we now know you have a right to possess a firearm outside of your home. In other words, your right to defend yourself doesn't end at your front door. So now they're saying, okay, yeah, you can carry a gun outside of your home, except for everywhere. So now there is no. So in other words, you have the right, but if you carry any place you're not supposed to carry, any place that we don't say, because we get a chance we get an opportunity to determine what are sensitive spaces, even though the Supreme Court specifically told them you can't just deem every place a sensitive space. You don't have the right to. The government, once again, does not have the right to pass laws that either directly or indirectly would basically subvert the right to be able to defend oneself outside of their home, simply by passing a bunch of legislation that says that restricts, once again, that makes it almost impossible for you to be able to exercise rights. It would be kind of like saying, well, yeah, you have a right to freedom of speech, but we're going to make it so difficult and so costly that most people are not going to be, and so confusing as to when you would break the law, when you're breaking the law, and when you're not, that most people would be discouraged, significantly discouraged, or at least prohibited from being able to exercise their fundamental rights. That's because they don't see the right to keep and bear arms as a fundamental right. They don't. Anyway. And the next one, speaking of Kamala Harris, by the way, I do know that the term is the second gentleman, but I ran out of room. So I went with the second man, or I could have called him the second dude. Called him the second dude. So the second dude screwed up the meaning of Hanukkah. And you might have seen this story. I know I have, and I just found it, to be interesting. What makes this more interesting is that the second gentleman actually happens to be Jewish. And I'll read a little bit of the story here. It says, Vice President Kamala Harris, Harris's husband, the second gentleman, George Emhoff, botched the history behind Hanukkah in a tweet Monday before scrambling to delete his version of why Jewish people celebrate the ancient miracle. Emhoff, who is Jewish, shared an image of himself and Harris lighting a menorah before attempting to explain the origins of the 8-day Jewish holiday. The story of Hanukkah and the story of the Jewish people has always been one of hope and resilience. In the Hanukkah story, the Jewish people were forced into hiding, Emhoff wrote. No one thought they would survive or that the few drops of oil they had would last. But they survived, and the oil kept burning, he added. During those 8 days in hiding, they recited their prayers and continued their traditions. That's why Hanukkah means dedication. It was during those dark nights that the Maccabees, I hope I'm probably mispronouncing it, but I mispronounce everything, so sorry. Dedicated themselves to maintaining hope and faith in the oil, in each other, and their Judaism. In these dark times, I think of that story. However, his take on the story missed the real intent. As explained by Fox News, the Hanukkah story isn't about Jews hiding with only a little bit of oil. The holiday celebrates the rededication of the Second Temple in Jerusalem in the 2nd century and celebrates the Jewish Maccabees' victory over their Greek-Syrian oppressors. When the Jews sought to rededicate their temple, they found only 1 day supply of sacred oil that miraculously lasted for 8 days. The fallout on social media was not kind to Mr. Kamala Harris and helps explain why he deleted his tweet. Here's a quick sampling of the responses to the story as seen on X. Norma Rothman, how could this have happened? Okay. Ben Shapiro, I very much enjoy his show, by the way. I quoted him here quite often. Doug Emhoff is the Kamala Harris of Second Gentleman. Well, if you've ever listened to Kamala Harris speak, you get it. It says here, Doug Emhoff. This is from William Scarf. Once again, bad with names. Apologize. Doug Emhoff apparently thinks the Maccabees were hiding out of some sort of subterranean lair with an oil lamp. This is emphatically not the story of Hanukkah. Reconsecration of the temple and the recommitment to biblical values and teaching is the story of Hanukkah. All right. Now, a couple of things I'm going to say about this. Number one, I know the true meaning of Hanukkah, but I can honestly say, when I was in elementary school, I was taught what he said it was. So, congratulations, public schools. Yeah, next time get it right. I can tell you this right now. That's what I was taught. That's exactly what I was taught. And I'm glad that we now have the internet to correct us. I'm not saying that I believed that now. I'm not saying that I believe that today or before reading the story. I'm just saying what I was taught when I was in elementary school. And somebody, I'm going to believe that this was some assistant to the first gentleman or the second gentleman who wrote this. Somebody should have double-checked the history. There should have been some sort of fact-checking. But then again, I mean, this is not the first time coming out of someone representing this administration that that misinformation or disinformation has been spread. If they're not going to hold the president, and his stories to a certain standard of truthfulness, why should we expect anything different from the second gentleman? Not saying, just saying. Yeah, that's one of my favorite sayings. Not saying, just saying. But that's kind of how it is. That's right there. It's kind of be how they be. But anyway, it's like I said, I feel kind of bad for them. Well, no, I don't feel bad. Let me clarify. I don't feel bad. Get it right. If you want to do, if your goal is to seem so enlightened and so woke and so connected to your people, get the story right. I guess the reason why I would have never thought that someone would get it wrong, because I don't know that I just don't know that I would be putting out stories about or the meaning of Hanukkah without actually looking up the meaning of Hanukkah. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to move on to our parting shots, brought to you by Hog Holsters. Go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, and get your Hog Holster today. Our first one is going to be, you already saw a little bit of it earlier. Our first parting shot is going to come from Home Alone. This was a story over at Fox News where he said the Home Alone prices for the stuff that he went to the store to buy. If you haven't seen the movie Home Alone, shame on you. You've got homework. In 1990, it costs $19.83. In 2022, it costs $44.40. 32 years. Things are going to change a little bit. But in 2023, it's $72.28. Wow, that there right there be kind of expensive. Anyway, it says here, Home Alone fans left speechless after figuring out how much Kevin's grocery store trip cost today. Funny. Now, you also may know Alex Jones is back on Twitter, and the left is losing their minds. All right, for those of you who are actually just listening to the program, this has got the scene from The Shining, where Jack Nicholson is broken through the bathroom door, and he's like, "Here's Donnie." Well, in this case, it's Alex Jones with sticking his face through the door, and the image of the woman with the knife in there, I think it was Sally Winters at the time, is the liberal woman with the knit cap on who's screaming after Donald Trump gets elected. Yeah, that's it. Anyway, it's hilarious. And then following up once again on the Harvard story, where the president of Harvard basically said, "Yeah, no, it's okay to call for the genocide of Jews as long as it's in the proper context." Yeah. Well, there's more fallout. Not only is she not going anywhere, but employers are now responding. It says here, did not attend Harvard. Now, number one quality employers are seeking in a job candidate. That right there is courtesy of the Babylon Bee. Funny stuff. All right. And now here we are once again. We are at the end of our show. But before we go, want to make sure to give a shout out to our sponsors. We've got Hitman Industries. You can find them at hitmanindustries.net. Rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase today. The California Republican Assembly. If you want to be part of California's future today, join CRA at cragop.org. Then we've got Hog Holsters, HAWG Holsters, helping Americans wear guns. Use discount code The Rundown at hogholsters.com to get your discount today. And then get your outdoor gear, your tactical gear, your cold weather, wet weather gear, tactical gear all the way around at uscombatgear.com. And with that, we are done for the day. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We'll be back tomorrow on Throat Punch Thursday. I'll let you later.